ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Namaskar, my dear friends. I'm going to give you a video on spiritual teachings of Swami Brahmananda, a direct disciple of Paramahansa Ramakrishna. This video starts with chapter 20, God Vision. Conversation at Calcutta, 2nd of February 1922. The Swami is the honored guest of a devotee, Swami Brahmananda. A pure, healthy mind is what is required. Remain under the shelter of his lotus feet. He will do all that is needful. You have only to keep your mind fixed over on him. Give up all longing for the world. It is a very unholy place. Pay no more heed to it than is absolutely necessary. Devote the rest of yourself to God. I tell you, you are just the person to do this. Try and you will succeed. Struggle and struggle. You will have to struggle hard. Begin this moment, no more delay, no more doubt, no more speculation. Oh, the joy of realization, the satisfaction of it. Just a little of it even will suffice for you. Strive to cross over Mahamaya, divine illusion. Yes, in this very life you must go beyond it. Strive hard. It is indeed a difficult task. Faith, unshakable faith, is necessary. Without that, you cannot succeed. Be determined. Remove all doubts. Then you can tear the veil of Maya and see God. Faith, you know, is the only resource. Strengthen it by all possible means. Disciple, if doubt creeps in at times, what shall I do? Swami Brahmananda, you cannot have unshakable faith until God realization comes. It is possible only when you have the vision of God, when you have realized Him. Till then, you can only make an approach to true faith, nothing more. Whenever doubts disturb the even balance of the mind, hold fast to God and pray. If you can do so over and over again, your conviction will be firm and invincible. Doubts surely will come, but drive them out in this wise. Think within yourself, God is, but because of my lot I cannot see him. The moment his grace descends, that moment I shall be blessed by seeing him. Do not lose faith. Cling to him always and under all circumstances. This gross mind cannot comprehend God. God is beyond mind, He is far beyond intellect. The world that you see is within the domain of the mind. The mind is its author. The mind has created it, and beyond it the mind cannot go. But through sadhana, a subtle mind opens up, the mind of spirit that is already in you, but in the form of a germ. In course of time, this germ will develop and unfold. The gross mind will lead you to the subtle. The subtle shines forth in the glory of its own self. It is at this stage that you can have the vision of finer truths. The world with all its diversity will then lose all charm for you. It can delude you no more. Then you will pass your time day and night completely lost in the contemplation of God and His glory. The next stage is Samadhi. This Samadhi cannot be described. It is beyond the reach of the gross mind, beyond language. It is beyond asti and nasti, human calculation, beyond pleasure and pain, beyond joy and sorrow, beyond light, beyond darkness, beyond all duality. Human language is too feeble to say what that blessed state is. The Vedas all deal with the three gunas. Be thou free, O Arjuna, be thou free from the three gunas. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, if you want God, you must transcend the limits of the gunas. Disputes and dissensions, wars and feuds, malice and jealousy, egotism and pride, these are the products of tamas. Rajas goads man to activity and creates the desire for name and fame. A man full of rajas meditates for half an hour at best and then looks around to see if it has attracted the notice of others. If it has not, he thinks his meditation is all in vain. This half hour's meditation, he is a beggar of popular applause. Then comes Sattva, the state of serene vision. The Vedas deal with these gunas, but we must not stop here. We must go beyond the gunas, disciple. In this world, certain works seem to us as duties. How are we to do these, sir? The Swami. This world is God's, nothing in it can I call my own. He is getting his work done by me. Verily, nothing belongs to me. If you can do what you call your duties with this attitude, then they will do you no harm. Your work will no longer bind you. This thing belongs to me, that is mine. This attitude you must banish from your mind. In its stead, say, everything is God's, even myself. I am placed here by His will, and I shall be removed hence the moment He wills it. Let this be your principle of life. Do not identify yourself with the things of the world. Do your duties with this attitude and also do them thoroughly and well, so that people may not perceive your real motive and blame you. But in the heart of hearts, no earthly things you have none. God is the doer and you the instrument. Through you he will get done what he likes to have done. Disciple. Maharaj, in my attempt to do work in this way, if at times I forget the true motive, if egotism asserts itself, and if attachment prevails, what then? Swami Brahmananda says, do not yield to depression, never allow yourself to be depressed. If at times you forget your true motive, never mind. Begin once more with redoubled energy and see that it does not recur again. Doubts and confusion, who can kill them before God realization is attained? They will come and they will go. That is their nature. But do not get dejected. Shake off despair, shake off disappointment, shake off doubt. Make no compromise. Have infinite tenacity and infinite energy. To do or die. Let this be your motto. God, you must realize. Now, in this very life, you must see Him. In vain is your being, in vain your mind, in vain your life. Everything is in vain if you cannot realize Him here in this very life. Therefore say boldly, what shall I do with the body? What is the use of the mind if I cannot see God with them? What do I care if they perish? Let them stay or go, but I must see God, I must see God. Chapter 21, Different Methods of Attainment. Devotee. Maharaj, these different forms of worship, these different rituals, these different gods and goddesses, they they mean anything special? Swami Brahmananda replies, all these have one and the same purpose, God realization. There is so much difference between one man and another in their inclinations and their temperaments that no one method can be assigned to all for their sadhana or spiritual advancement. Different temperaments require different sadhana and different ways of worship. To meet these varying demands, the scriptures have prescribed four principal means: samadhi, dhyana, actual japam, prayer, and external worship. The best kind of worship is samadhi, or the direct worship of the Brahma, the actual vision of the omnipresent reality. The second in importance is dhyana or meditation, where two things exist, himself and myself. Japam, prayer, and the like have no room here. When meditation deepens, one perceives the holy form of one's Ishtam or chosen deity. The form pure and simple. Here again, Japam and prayer have no place. The next step is Japam and prayer, in which one sings the glory of the Lord, praying, chanting, or repeating the hallowed name of one's chosen deity, simultaneously meditating upon the blessed form behind that holy name. The last is external worship. This consists in worshipping the Supreme Being in Partika or images. These different forms of worship, different gods and goddesses, all these are but creations of the human mind. They mark different degrees of progress of the mind, its evolutionary stages in its onward march to God. A man desires to perform sadhana. Now, what should he do? Can he begin from any point? No, he must start exactly where his mind stands and proceed stage after stage till the God is reached. Take the case of an ordinary man. If you ask him to meditate upon the Supreme Brahma, who is without name or form, or if you ask him to practice Samadhi, he will not comprehend nor will he be well disposed towards his task. The result will be that he will give up sadhana altogether. On the other hand, if he worships the Brahma in an image with offerings of flowers and sacred leaves, he will think he has done something. For some time at least, his mind will be free from distractions into which every moment it is liable to fall. He will be unperturbed and will rejoice in his worship. By and by, he will outgrow that stage. The finer the mind grows, the less becomes the joy of man in things gross and secular. If you begin puja or external worship now, later on you will feel naturally that japam is a better substitute. Then you will find in meditation a far better substitute, and so on. This gradual process is a natural way of growth for the human mind. In the course of this mental evolution, the experience the mind acquires is not lost. The mind retains and stores it up in the memory. Take an illustration. Standing down in the courtyard, you wish to get on the roof. What will you do? You have to find the staircase and climbing the steps one after the other, you reach the roof. Instead, if you are thrown through the air right up to the housetop, that certainly would mean a great deal of discomfort and danger. You can avoid hurt or injury only by following the gradual process. So is it with the world within. To avoid all untoward circumstances in your march towards spiritual realization, you must follow the gradual path that is marked out for us by the seers of the past. These different forms of worship constitute that path, ways and means, rules and regulations. These exist in the physical world as well as in that of the mind. The same law rules both. Devotee, if a distracting thought well known to me persists in rising in the mind, what shall I do then? Revered sir, how shall I check it? Swami Brahmananda replies, this thought is immensely harmful to me. It can bring about my ruin. It is my worst enemy. Impress this idea on your mind by repeated effort. Once you can stamp this impression upon the mind, you will find the distracting thought vanishing in no time. Take, for example, this boy who is sitting here. This boy, who is he? I do not know him. He is good for nothing. He is worthless. If you persist in thinking thus for some time, before long you will find that he has become so for you. He will be of no importance whatsoever. Your mind will no longer turn towards him. And why? Because you have impressed upon the mind that idea. Take one more illustration. A little child, it does not know the results of taking poison. If you give it a little poison, it will not care, it will not be afraid. But if that very same thing is given to you, you will start and recoil to a safe distance. It is because you know the effect of poison. So we see the mind is a strange thing. Whatever you hold before it, it will learn. One thing and a very serious thing I must tell you. First choose your ideal and then struggle to realize it. The ideal must never be lowered. God is the highest ideal, God who is smaller than an atom and bigger than the solar system. He who shines forth everywhere at all times and in all beings, in you and in me, differing only in manifestation, greater or smaller, he is the same as the Atman that pervades the entire universe. Nothing is superior to him. Make him your ideal, him and him alone. Try a little and you will realize that what an inexhaustible fount of joy he is. The world, you have had enough experience of it, now try the other side, seek God. The veil of Maya, ignorance, hangs before you, obstructing your vision of God. Tear it off, and lo, he is there. To cross Maya's bounds is indeed a hard task, but not an impossibility. Men have crossed before you, and you can also cross. Strive on, success is at hand, knock, and it shall be opened unto you. The world will stand transformed to these very eyes of yours. Devotee, regarding the scriptures, what attitude should we maintain? Should we put for faith in their authority? Swami Brahmananda, certainly all these scriptural injunctions are true for the good and guidance of mankind through the ages. These have been formulated by men of the past and handed down from generation to generation, from father to son up to the present day. You must obey them. Another thing, as regards karma, work, you must never give it up wholly. Without it, your very existence would be impossible. It can also lead you in the end to God realization. Man does not know when karma began, but he knows where it ends. Verily, with the God realization, all the shackles of karma fall off. Then no more work remains to be done. But until that state is reached, you are within the bounds of karma and you have to work. By doing your karma for the sake of karma, you will attain to the greatest good. Devotee. And what sort of food are we to take, sir? Are there any rules about diet? Swami Brahmananda replies, a very difficult question. It is very hard to answer. Men differ so widely in their constitution that it is hardly possible to lay down any hard and fast rule about food. One one thing may be suitable to your constitution, but the same may not suit mine. Our scriptures therefore have not laid much stress on this point. In the Gita, we come across certain passages referring to discrimination about food, but that is a general classification. Roughly speaking, it can be said that rich dishes should be avoided. One should choose one's own food according to one's power of assimilation. Devotee, Maharaj, non-vegetarian diet, does it not involve sin, the sin of killing animals? Swami Brahmananda replies, no. They say ahimsa, non-injury is the greatest virtue, but when? Only after Samadhi, when the supreme knowledge has been attained, when God has been realized in all creatures. Then only can there be true ahimsa. Before that, no amount of talk can make it so. It comes when you realize that the same Atman resides in you as well as in the little ant, and that no difference exists. Before that, it is impossible. You may speak of ahimsa, but truly speaking, can you avoid himsa? What food do you take? Potato. It shoots forth young sprouts when planted. These, these bring a new crop. Is the potato lifeless? So the paddy grain it grows into a plant, and this again bears new paddy. Is the paddy then lifeless? Examine a drop of water under a microscope and you will find millions of little lives, and you drink it. Again, to live is to take breath. Now, with every breath, you kill millions of little creatures. Take the case of those who make much of this vegetable diet. What food do they prescribe? Milk and ghee. Now, how do you get milk? By depriving a poor creature, the tiny calf, of its legitimate food. That is an extremely cruel act, but that is no sin in common parlance, and all the sin lies in a bit of fish or meat. Such flimsy arguments cannot stand. The old Hindus never had such ideas. It is a later Vaishnavite interpolation. Chapter number 22, Samadhi. Swami Brahmananda, Samadhi is mainly of two kinds, Savikalpa, ecstatic state of dual consciousness, and Nirvikalpa, undifferentiated state of consciousness. In the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, a man loses all knowledge of name and form, and the whole world vanishes into nothingness. In the Kansipur garden, Swami Vivekananda attained the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, but very few knew of it, for he seldom spoke of his experiences. There is yet another kind of Samadhi called Ananda Samadhi. In this, the mind tastes such ecstatic joy that the body can scarcely hold it, and as a consequence, the Brahma Randra, the gate of the body in the top of the head, gives way. In this blissful state of consciousness, the body lasts 3 weeks at best and no longer. Man visualize God in different forms, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, according to the predominance of one or other of these three qualities. What a pity that instead of trading in this priceless merchandise, people bargain for paltry worldly things. Man must cultivate the habit of remembering and thinking on God constantly, for they have only God to call their own, and they have to realize this truth in this life. The natural bent of the ordinary human mind is towards enjoyment, but that must be changed and the mind given an upward turn. Sri Ramakrishna's mind ever soared in the region of bliss supreme, especially during his sadhana under the Panchavati at Dakshineswar. It reached such a high pitch that time passed unnoticed. He totally lost all appetite for food and drink. But since his body had to be preserved, the man who waited upon the master would thrust a morsel of rice into his mouth whenever he seemed to come down from the exalted state of bliss in which he usually remained. In this way, during the whole day and night, the master was made to swallow some 7 or 8 morsels of rice at most. Much later, when we met him, even then we could mark that he had to bring his mind down to the physical plane by force. One day, in the course of his teaching, the master spoke at length about the Shabda Brahm, the manifestation of Brahma as sound. This was the subject of my noontide meditation in the Panchavati, and lo, suddenly I heard the truth of his words revealed to me. I heard the birds on the trees around sing the divine Vedic lore. On one occasion, Sri Ramakrishna said, one day as I was meditating in the Kali temple in a vision, I saw the screens of Maya, ignorance, disappear one after the other from my sight. Another day, Mother held before my eyes a flood of light surpassing in effulgence and splendor a million suns, and out of that luminous mass I saw a form purely of the nature of consciousness emerge slowly only to melt away into the light the next moment. The formless assumed form, and the form lost itself in the formless. One day, entering the Kali temple, K began to admonish the mother in a violent tone. His chest became red and tears trickled down from his eyes in great anger. Sri Ramakrishna, who had all this time been inside the temple, perceiving his tone, came out and said, true temper can be shown to our near and dear ones, but yours is a very difficult attitude. Veer Bhava, or the attitude of a lord to his consort. Mine is Maitri Bhava, the attitude of a son to his mother. The human body is the greatest temple of God. For this reason, the scriptures enjoin that meditation and worship should be performed in the body. In this body is the Sahasrara, the thousand petaled lotus in the head, that is the upper brain, from where the mind does not ordinarily come down if once it ascends there. It is for this reason that the scriptures say, when in the Ratha is seen, the Vamana rebirth is at an end, which means that in this very body, Ratha, resides God Vamana, and realizing him therein, man escapes the repeated cycles of birth and death. In this body, Ram Prasad saw the Lord, the Father and Mother of all, and instantly he sang, thou abidest in this body, O Mother, and herein do I see thee. There is a third eye, the eye of knowledge, in this body on the forehead between the eyebrows. When it opens, one sees, as Sri Ramakrishna has said, everything blissful and happy around him. What is true of the macrocosm is true of the microcosm. How wonderful it is that God is so near us. Verily, if a man can once realize Him and have a taste of bliss divine, he will forthwith lose all taste for everything else. The temples, cars, and chariots used in external worship are but symbols of the greatest temple of God, the human body. Chapter 13, Power of Mind. Swami Brahmananda, a king lives in his palace within 7 gates. A poor man begs of the minister a royal interview and his prayer is granted. The minister leads him through the gates to the royal presence. Now, finding an officer richly dressed and stationed at each gate, the man asks his guide if the officer, is the king, but every time the answer is in the negative. When they entered the seventh gate at the sight of the exquisite beauty and grandeur of the real king, the man at once recognizes him as such and asks the minister no more. Such is the case with the Guru. Like the minister and the Guru leads the disciple through different stages till he leaves him with the Lord. No guru is greater than your own mind. You will see when your mind is made steady through meditation. It will dictate from within what you have to do and which way to follow. Even in your daily duties, it will show what is to be done first and what next. Thus, it will lead you on till the goal is reached. You can develop your mind and make it steady in either of two ways by retiring to a solitary retreat and making the mind absolutely unsusceptible to any change through concentration and meditation, or by continually thinking good thoughts and developing love and attachment towards God. The mind is just like a milch cow which gives a large supply when fed well. Give the mind more food and you will find it giving you better service in return. And what constitutes the food of the mind? Meditation and concentration, prayer and worship and all such practices. There is a class of sadhakas who let loose their mind and keep a strong watch over its movements. The mind, after roaming here and there, nowhere finds lasting peace. Consequently, it turns back to God and takes refuge in Him. The fact is, if you look after the mind will look after you. This being the case, it behoves you to keep a vigilant eye on the movements of the mind and analyze them with the utmost care and scrutiny. For this mental analysis, no place is more suitable than a place of solitary retirement. It is for this purpose that the rishis of old always selected the Himalayan retreats or the bank of the Ganges to carry on their spiritual practices. The mind has to be purged of all attachment. It must be made transparent or it will not be able to catch the reflection of God. True renunciation consists in giving up all attachment for worldly objects to which the mind is bound. When the mind when the mind is once freed from this shackle, it will not be affected in the least, even though it is placed in the midst of numberless objects of sense. Hence, the value of struggle. A man who has no struggle in his life is lifeless. But he who has bravely faces any obstacle that comes in his way will have the reward of everlasting peace. The most favorable time for meditation is the time of Sanyama, the hour when the day closes and night commences, and when the night closes and day breaks. At these hours, nature is calm and at rest. This is the reason why early rising forms an essential factor in the religious life of a man. At this time, the Susumna Nadi, the central nerve within the spinal cord, sets to work, and as a result, the breath passes through both nostrils, the usual course, which is generally through one only, either the Ida or the Pingla, disturbing the mind. Certain yogins always watch for the time when the Susmana starts to function, and when it is actually at work at once they will sit for meditation, leaving aside whatever they may be engaged in. Man wants peace, but how can he realize it unless he can establish a close intimacy with God and make him his own? Unless in the mental world he can hold intercourse with him, feed him, dress him, and behave with him sweetly and cordially, just as he does with his near and dear ones, his friends and relatives on this physical plane. To acquire this mental attitude, the easiest course is to think constantly on him. It is therefore the simplest of all sadhanas. Mysterious is the way of God. He is infinite and finite. He also incarnates himself in the human form. Who can understand him? Bhusandi the crow at first took Ramachandra for an ordinary being, but unable to procure any shelter in the three worlds, heaven, earth, or the nether world. When chased by the unseen hand of Rama, at last he recognized him as God incarnate and prayed to him. Many and varied are the paths through which God leads man, and nobody knows through which path he will be led. God sometimes leads him through a thorny path, and at other times through a soft, rosy one. The one course open to man, therefore, is to resign himself wholly at his feet. This is the only way out. The body, mind, and the senses all become low and benumbed through the debasing influence of Maya. Ensnared in the trap of the five elements, says Sri Ramakrishna. The Brahma himself weeps and laments, such is Maya. But to a man who has first realized God, who has transcended once for all her deluding charms and attractions, a thousand words cannot do the least harm. Such a man is beyond the bounds of Maya, and to such a one alone are revealed her mysteries. Under the delusion of this divine Maya, man cannot comprehend how terribly painful and troublesome it is to be born and to live in this world. The body is decaying day by day. Still, he is forgetful of the sacred mission for which he has taken this human birth. In spite of the troubles and tribulations of life here on this earth, human birth has a unique advantage. It is only in this birth that a being can realize God. Therefore, without paying heed to the ease and comforts of this frail form, a man should do here such meritorious works as will produce lasting effect hereafter and thus terminate the repeated cycles of birth and death. Indeed, for the sake of mental peace, one has to invoke peacelessness. Such is the teaching of the wise. I end this video here. Next video will start with chapter number 24, Worship of God, Admonition to a Disciple. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaskar, my dear friends.